Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? Good. It's a good start. So welcome to demonstration of how to have performance in the cloud. This presentation is by myself. My name is Mark Thomas. I'm from Databarracks, a service provider in the UK. We've also brought along one of our technology partners, SolidFire. Tim from SolidFire is here to present with me today. And we're going to talk about storage in particular today, and about how we can address those kind of storage concerns. First, a little bit of background about me and kind of my knowledge in this subject. I've worked in IT for over 15 years, most of that as a consultant. I've worked in a consolidated virtualization environment for about 12 years, so since 2002. And for the last 5 or 6 years, I've worked in service providers. I currently work for Databarracks, who are just over here. But I've also worked for VirtuStream, who are in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, both here in the UK and in the US. And before that, I worked for a virtualization consultancy partner, who was one of the first virtualization consultants in the UK. And over those years, one of the biggest challenges has always been storage. There's been ways to address all the other performance criteria around CPU and memory. Lots of the hypervisor technologies do very good jobs of managing the quality of service. But the storage has always been a bit of a problem. And especially when we look at cloud and how multi-tenancy and those kind of variances are added into the mix, the challenges that consumers or even service providers have to face to try and actually give something back to the client that they really can use. So a little bit about who Databarracks is. We provide secure and compliant cloud infrastructure services. We also do DR services, and we've done backup as a service for over 10 years. We have probably over hundreds of terabytes of data that we back up. We have lots of customers who take our infrastructure as a service and backup as a service. So what we do have is a good understanding about what it is to have huge amounts of data within a multi-tenant offsite location. The thing that we're now focusing on is about how we grow that business from being disaster recovery to the full enterprise scale, CRM, high-end database type systems. And when I joined Databarracks about 18 months ago, we evaluated a lot of different technologies for all the different areas of the platform. And storage, we spent a lot of time looking at the different big vendors, and obviously SolidFire is one of them, and ultimately chose SolidFire for some of the features that we're looking at today. And it addresses some of the specific concerns that you've probably experienced yourselves if you've ever tried to do this on someone else's platform, or even in your own infrastructure using other technologies. Just some of our customers that we currently have on our platform, not really important here, but just to kind of show you that we do have a pedigree doing managed services for lots of large organisations across the globe. So we do provide services for non-UK customers as well as UK customers. So I'm just going to hand over to Tim now, who's going to give you a bit of background about SolidFire and explain kind of some of the challenges that SolidFire addresses.
Thanks very much, Mark. Morning, everybody. So, SolidFire. Firstly, I'm delighted to be here supporting Databarracks in this presentation. What we'll give you is a little evidence around what's going on in the industry, but specifically why we see cloud service providers such as Databarracks as a strategic route to market for us. SolidFire is an all-flash array that's built for next-generation data centers. What that means is that we focus exclusively on two markets. The first is cloud service providers who are offering IT services in various different forms to the commercial marketplace today. And the second market, which is an emerging market for us, is major enterprises that are looking at cloud service providers as thought leaders in terms of how they orchestrate their clouds, in terms of the efficiencies and scale points they need in their business. And they're very much replicating the way that these next generation data centers are built in the manner that cloud service providers are building theirs. The things that we're differentiated by, firstly, we enable cloud service providers, we enable Databarracks to offer performance guarantees, SLAs wrapped around performance, which is very difficult in the marketplace today. If you're trying to build that in a shared infrastructure, you can do it on dedicated infrastructure, and on shared infrastructure, it's an incredibly difficult thing to do. We have tremendous data efficiency technologies that have got no performance compromises in our all-flash array. Realistically today, this is table stakes. you need to be able to offer efficiency technologies across all your storage platform today because of the amount of power, space, and just the actual capital cost of this technology. So what these next two slides do, and I'm sure you've seen all this, we subscribe to all the industry analysts, and this is sort of a general consensus that you're going to see IT spend really explode and shift towards cloud services and that cloud services model. And what it really does is it makes the case for companies such as Databarracks and events and shows such as this, as customers today look to take advantage of that shift and not build their own stack continually internally, but look to cloud service providers and organizations that enable them to build their own, to buy IT services as opposed to building their own. And what this also does, particularly here when you see 12.2 billion public cloud storage sales, it makes the case for our strategy, which is to support cloud service providers. What this means is there's a major industry shift towards organizations, certainly in the small, medium enterprise, and some large organizations as well, taking applications they've traditionally hosted internally and moving them to cloud service providers where they can reduce their expenses and in many ways get a better quality of service and a more mature and a more cost-efficient service. When you think about the cloud so far and cloud services, this has traditionally been the marketplace where you've seen the most activity. So these are test, dev, backups, archives, scratch space, startups, these sorts of environments. And the reason why this has been delivered in cloud service providers or has been the early adopter market is because these aren't performance-sensitive applications. The trick, and so it's very easy to deliver them on traditional technologies today. The trick comes with how do you take these applications and move them into a public or private cloud environment. The reason why a lot of these applications, get my clicker to work. The reason why the majority of these applications today don't move across into public cloud is because they can't get the performance guarantees or the consistency of performance that they're looking for from their existing dedicated infrastructures. And for cloud service providers, the operating model to enable them to do that with dedicated infrastructure is very often cost prohibitive, meaning that if you're an enterprise and you're looking at things like how do you move messaging and how do you move your databases and move that into a cloud service provider infrastructure, very often the operating model will be predicated on dedicated infrastructure. So the question then becomes, how do you move that into a shared infrastructure? You get a perception of unreliability. Applications don't run to specific guaranteed performance, whether it be minimum or maximum performance, and you can't offer performance guarantees to your customers. And if you are a customer looking at a public cloud, you'll be looking at reliability guarantees, uptime guarantees, but the thing that stops you moving your applications across is the ability to have a performance guarantee.
Okay, thanks, Tim. So we've talked about kind of some of the challenges and what SolidFire is trying to do to kind of address it, but let's look at this from an enterprise IT perspective. What are enterprise ITs looking for? Not just from their own infrastructure, but from cloud service providers. Well, ultimately they're being asked to deploy new applications faster, more efficiently than they've ever been before. Everyone's looking at cost savings. They need more agile and scalable infrastructure, which doesn't require the fork and lift of infrastructure from one location to another. They need to increase the application performance as the application grows. And how do they manage that? Can they automate it? More automation means more management capabilities, smooth growth across the enterprise IT. And obviously, operational efficiency. Where can you make cost savings, as we talked about, not just from a cost perspective, but just from a utilisation perspective? And as we've kind of highlighted, most IT departments struggle to achieve all of these due to the fact that storage is an ever-growing commodity. Unlike CPU and memory, storage continues to grow. And in most organisations, you'll have many tiers of storage, many different vendors potentially, and trying to manage that whole infrastructure is incredibly difficult. And in trying to achieve these efficiencies is very difficult as well. So, talking about the cloud, that's an enterprise IT. But when we talk about cloud service providers and what we can provide back as services, what do we really need? Well, It's very difficult for us to be able to do that on a multi-tenancy basis. Trying to dedicate storage to one client over another client and make sure that you get the guaranteed performance is very difficult. Ask any of the vendors out here today and ask them how they can achieve SLAs on their storage, and it's not always the same answer. But SLAs are important for enterprises. That shift that we saw from test and dev to production enterprise systems has to have SLAs all across the stack. Without that, you can't move your SAP system, you can't move your Exchange, you can't move your SQL. It's just not possible. So these are enablers to allow you as a consumer, or even service providers, to offer the services back up the stack. Efficiency, we talked about this. Traditionally, to get performance, you'd have to buy capacity. And we haven't talked about this specifically, but SolidFire enables the ability to have performance without capacity growth. It decouples IOPS from capacity. So you can have a 500 gig volume that has 10,000 IOPS. It becomes very efficient. You don't have to drag along either capacity or performance to satisfy the needs of a particular application. And we'll look at that in a minute. So don't worry about that. I can see some physical faces already. Management, as I said, is complex. It gets even worse if you've got multiple providers with different storage arrays. How do you manage that environment? It's very difficult. So automation is really important to us as service providers to be able to make sure that we can deliver those services back coherently and not make any mistakes. And again, one of the benefits of the SolidFire is the API integration, which you'll see a bit later on. And scale. Storage, as we talked about, is going to grow infinitely. If you take on board what's being said in the market, big data is the next big thing. We need more data to be able to analyse it, to be able to see more about what we do within our business. Storage has to scale linearly. It's very difficult with a lot of arrays to be able to scale past a certain point, and they eventually hit a bottleneck, and it requires you to buy an additional array which you have to manage. So, going back to the key differentiators of SolidFire, I'll let Tim explain some of these key concepts.
Okay, my last slide, so I'll be very brief. These are the 4 key differentiators for SolidFire in the marketplace today. Remembering that we focus on 2 markets, cloud service providers and major IT organizations that are building private clouds or next generation data centers. Firstly, guaranteed quality of service. The ability to guarantee application performance in a multi-tenant environment, mixed load, workload environment, and to be able to do that at a per volume level. Critically important to be able to do that. Cloud service providers can offer SLAs around performance. Complete automation. Our company was born out of Rackspace originally, and the advantage of that 4 years ago was we were at the conception point of OpenStack. In fact, we chair the Cinder Committee for OpenStack, and we published a lot of code for the OpenStack environment. The decision, the big bet that was placed effectively was that we wanted to be able to completely automate the storage platform and manage it underneath OpenStack Cloud Stack. And so it's got a REST-based API with roughly 45 commands that you can completely manage and automate SolidFire underneath, which is incredibly powerful. You can also, through the APIs, you can expose the customer to be able to define their own storage tiers as well. So if they wanted to, for a short period of time, move up the storage tier to a higher service level, they can do that themselves. They can come down again, and they can set their own parameters. And like Mark was saying, you can provision capacity separately to performance, so you can do this without any cost to the infrastructure itself. So complete automation is critically important. That's a very significant differentiator for us, and a proof point really that we were built for this cloud era. Inline efficiency, again, I said to you earlier, it's table stakes, thin provisioning, dedupe, and compression. To be able to do that with an all-flash array, you don't get performance bottlenecks or any issues because it's running faster than the network. And lastly, cloud scale. This is the ability, the form factor of SolidFire is built in a one-use server node, which is very unusual for storage today. So we have shared nothing data protection, which allows you to scale this, the security of your platform, the performance of your platform, and the capacity of your platform all at the same time. So as you grow, you're growing performance and you're growing capacity. Today, traditionally, storage is built on, is bought on a capacity basis. And what most customers are doing is really trying to beat or de-throttle the bottleneck that they have around performance, and the way they do that is buying more and more capacity. And for public cloud to be truly successful and for the economics to work, that simply has to change, and that's really where SolidFire is focused today.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And as I said, from experience, this has always been an issue. So we were a very early adopter with the SolidFire technology. I think we're probably company number 3, and the first in the UK to provide this technology to public cloud, basically. So now we've talked about this, maybe we should look at it in action and see actually what it means, essentially. So we've got a little video, which I'll talk over. Unfortunately, you're going to hear me talking a bit more, which kind of demonstrates everything that we've been talking about. So here we go. This is SolidFire interface. Don't need to worry about that. But we haven't got quasi enabled at the moment. What does that mean? Well, it's like any other array. It means that potentially any particular client, any particular application will consume all the IOPS on that storage array because it's uncontrolled. What does that mean? Anyone who isn't potentially using that application may be impacted. It becomes very difficult to be able to say who's getting the performance. So using the SolidFire array, what we can do is we can create multi-tenancy and then the quality of service. Some of this don't need to worry about too much, but the important bit here is that we create separate security accounts for each tenant. Each tenant gets access to their own volumes, and in each volume you can specify both a capacity and a performance. And as you can see there, it's as simple as moving slides. We can specify what the minimum, the maximum and a burst capability of IOPS is per volume. And that's really important. As we said, it doesn't tie capacity with performance, and it's completely flexible on the fly. You can see the APIs there, it's all built on APIs, so we can automate them. Our service portal allows you to see exactly the information that you're seeing here and control that and request more performance as you require it. Some of the performance efficiency figures are displayed here. Deprovisioning, dedupe, compression, all pretty standard in the storage community. SolidFire does it as well. So you're not losing anything by doing this. So what happens with quads in action? So what we can see here is many applications in very many volumes. They're all consuming their own resources as they try to do whatever they do. But because there's no control at the moment, they're all kind of leveled out. But obviously that's not necessarily what the requirement is. You probably have a SQL database that requires high transactions. It's not performing. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to set, via a command there, the quality of service. So we're going to guarantee performance to that database rather than to the file server or whatever else that may be running in the environment. So this is just commands running in the background. And here we can see the interface with all the volumes. We can see that they're all set exactly the same, but now if we refresh that, what we can see is we've now set different quality of service values for each of the different volumes. And this sets what a particular volume or a particular application can access at any given time. And as you can see now, this particular volume here, which has a requirement for high transactions, is now consuming more than it was previously. And it's actually throttled back all of the other applications. This is really important if you want to move your high-end systems into a cloud service provider or provide any quality of service to any application in a consolidated environment. And this can happen on the fly as well. So it's not a static thing. It's not when you set it up at any given point in time. We can scale that up or down, and you can then be seasonal, or you can be, as you grow, increase your performance and capacity on demand. True cloud computing platform. Probably the best thing to think about. As it says there, it gives predictable, guaranteed quality of service, and we can sell SLAs back on that. We can guarantee. So what you now end up with is, instead of this competition for storage, performance, it's now aggregated across all of the different volumes, guaranteed to say this is how much each of them can get. There's never any crossover, and that means you can get a smooth running of your application as expected. So just to kind of highlight that in a multi-tenanted type environment, it says tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. That can be tenant 1, tier 2, tenant 3. But this is all done on the one storage array. You don't have to have multiple storage arrays to tier your applications anymore. We don't have to migrate your data from one storage tier to another to give you better performance or more capacity. And that's again really important for businesses who don't need the fork and lift and move the data that they maybe experience today. So just to highlight, I know I've only got a few minutes left, I'm talking too much. Predictability is the most important. We can actually sell guarantees of performance back to you at a storage layer. Quality of service guarantees that. You don't have to compete anymore across multi-tenancy or against different applications on different volumes. And flexibility. We can scale effectively. You can scale effectively. You don't have to be moved from one storage array to another storage array. We scale linearly as you scale linearly. And the price. It's not very expensive. Even though it's a solid state system, because of the deduplication, the compression, and the other efficiencies, The cost is not significant, and it's only coming down by the day as new technology comes out and bigger capacity drives. These last two slides are not to do with storage, but ultimately about how we sell back to the rest of the compute to you. And obviously, while storage is good, you still need compute. So, like most providers, we have a couple of different models. We sell both a secure instance type model, which is our trademark model, which is a per VM based modeling, which gives you 100% guarantee SLA on CPU and memory. So you can get that combined with your storage I/O SLAs as well to guarantee everything from storage to memory to CPU. And that basically gives you 100% fixed costs. But we also have, for those larger enterprise scale customers, what's called a secure pool as well, which is a pool model. Again, most providers have this type of thing, where we can aggregate the workload across multiple VMs for your CPU and memory, allowing you to not waste any resource that's underutilized from one VM to another. And again, this is just to provide as much efficiency for bigger customers that you could reasonably expect, because there's such dynamic, different environments that one model does not fit all businesses. And that's kind of it for the presentation. So thank you very much.